and welcome to the Talk Football podcast. My name's Tommy Hay and I'm joined here by the editor of Get Spanish Football News Online, Kieran Quayle. Kieran, it's Wednesday, 15th of July, and this is our second consecutive day without football. How are you coping with that?
Yeah, I was thinking I'll have more withdrawal symptoms, but I'm actually handling it pretty good at this stage. And then I looked at the fixtures and we've got 10 games tomorrow, so we're going to be straight back into the thick of things. With just a few games to go. We've Thursday with a full fixture list, game week 37, and then back in on Sunday for 10 more games, and that'll conclude the season then. So it's exciting, but yeah, it's not bad having a day off watching 2 or 3 games. How are you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we needed that little break because it's just been so constant. And Tuesday came around just there, and I was quite happy to just not have to think about it for one day. Because it has been, I've been watching multiple games every day, and if I'm not watching games, I'm watching highlights of games, or reading articles about games, or listening to podcasts about games. So, yeah, it's been a welcome break. But as you say, we're gonna have on Thursday. It's all coming at once, so it's going to be really interesting. And where do we start with this? Well, I suppose the big news is Madrid still top. They could win the league at Villarreal, and the game the other day against Granada, arguably for me the biggest challenge they've had since the return of La Liga. How did you see this game? 2-1 they won eventually, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, and they got the 2 early goals, 2 brilliant goals from the French guys, Benzema and Ferland Mendy. I thought, obviously came out of the blocks really quickly and got those all important goals, but I thought that they were going to go on and maybe win 3 or 4-0. Seeing how quickly they started. But in fairness to Granada, they came back into it and they've got nothing to play for really. Granada, they're sitting in the mid-table, and their first season back in the top flight, so they're going unbelievably well. And I suppose they were like, well, let's just finish the season. We've got nothing to play for, but our pride really. And they went for Madrid in the second half, and Matchday got a goal, and it was kind of squeaky bum time for a while for Zidane. Zidane was up and down the line, and you could see he was a little bit nervous because he's dying for this league title, and sort of Madrid players said it'll be their first title since the 2016-17 season, so it's going to be a big one. It's probably going to happen tomorrow against Villarreal, but yeah, it was a massive win. That's their 9th win in a row since they came back, so it's real title winning form, and it just keeps them ahead of Barca with 2 games to go.
Yeah, that's it. And Diego Martinez, the Granada manager, said he was really proud of his team for the way they came back in the second half. Wasn't the best of first half performances, and it was like 2 quick goals in 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes than from the French guys. But they were great in the second half, but Madrid, it's just mark of champions, isn't it? They had a pretty average second half by their standards, and they just held on. And some great moments of defending, clearing the ball off, Ramos clearing the ball off the line and stuff like that. These are the moments that really define the season. And as you say, they could win it on Thursday regardless of what happens at the Camp Nou. It's completely in their hands, and they've done really well. Let's have a quick look at the games that are coming up, because they've got to play Villarreal. Villarreal conceivably could take something off them. It's not. We're guilty of talking about this as if it's all finished completely, but Villarreal are in good form, and they do have something to play for, unlike Granada. Do you think it's conceivable that Madrid could drop points at Villarreal?
I think they'll be okay. I just think that they have the momentum now. They're after winning 9 games. Villarreal lost recently against Sociedad, which was pretty surprising because they've been one of the informed teams along with Madrid since the restart. They're a very good team, and they've always got goals in them with Gerard Moreno, Alcácer, Santi Cazorla. They're very good going forward, but they're leaking goals as well. I just think Madrid have been so good and so consistent that they'll just get it done, and it'll be too much for Villarreal. But who knows? It mightn't go that way. Villarreal could make a draw. You know what I mean? It's a tough game. It's not one that Zidane would fancy now. In fairness, he'd rather have somebody with nothing to play for, or someone maybe down the table a little bit more. But if they do win, the fans have been told that they can't go to their meeting point of Cibeles in the city centre because of, obviously, with all the COVID restrictions and everything, they don't want thousands of people on the streets. Generally, that's where the bus goes after the players have won their titles, their Champions League titles or their league titles. So it'll be a quiet affair if they do win tomorrow night. But it's a funny one, because if Madrid win the league tomorrow, it'll be just the second time since the 2008-2009 season that Barca haven't gone into the final day as champions or in with a chance to win the league. So if they get it done, it'll be happy days for Madrid fans. But it just hasn't been a great season for Barca. But Barca have won 8 of the last 11 titles. So I think this will be a very sweet one for Zidane, because he's won his Champions League, so we all know that, but he hasn't had that much success domestically. So he'll be just mad to get it over the line now at this stage. And I do fancy them to do it, because there's just so much at stake. And if not, I think they'll win it eventually. They've got Eibar, or sorry, not Eibar.
Leganés.
They've Leganés then last game, yeah. So I think they'll get over the line eventually, even if it's not tomorrow. They need 2 points.
Yeah. They could also count with Jovic. He's going to be back. He because of the whole debacle with him travelling to Serbia and all the rest of it, he had to stay at home, and he had to go through 3 COVID tests in order to be able to even train again. So he's just the other day tested negative for the third one. And
breaking news.
Breaking news. But
Jovic has tested positive.
Yeah, positive or negative, who cares? But yeah, he's tested negative for the third one, so he's been back training. He took part in the little mini game that they have at the training. So he will, by all accounts, be travelling to Castellón. It will be an option. Who knows if he'll play or not? You probably fancy Benzema to play, but I don't know. There's a slight kind of fairy tale thing, the idea of him coming on and scoring the league-winning goal, isn't it? Because it's how would you rate his time at Madrid so far? It's been the general idea is that it's been a disappointment, but I think it's a bit more complicated than that, isn't it? Given the makeup of the team.
Yeah, he's been unlucky with injuries and Benzema's form. I think it's Benzema stayed fit and he's been scoring goals and assisting every week, so you can't remove him from the team. And he's flying fit, even though he's not getting any younger, Benzema. But Jovic, he's not playing. Zidane's not playing with a 4-4-2, so Jovic hasn't fit in there. And he's made some silly decisions as well. He flew back to Serbia just as the lockdown hit, and players were told to remain at home. So a couple of Madrid fans won't be impressed by his actions this year. Looking at it from a football point of view, he's got a few games. He scored a nice goal against Osasuna, but when he's played, he hasn't made the impact that people would have fancied or expected of him. But I mean, when you're not getting consistent runs in the team, that's hard enough to build confidence when you're a striker. But also the fact that it's Real Madrid, and you're coming in and you're expected to make an impression straight from the get-go, especially for a fee of 60 million euros. So he's young and he was brilliant in the Bundesliga. And I don't think that they should sell him, because they're not going to get 60 million back. They'll be down maybe 20 or 30 million. With the COVID, the transfer market isn't just going to be as strong as it once was. Teams don't have the money there to invest heavily. So I think Madrid will hold on to him. There's talk of teams in Milan, possibly AC Milan, and a couple of other teams in Serie A who'd like to have him. But I think he'll be mad to play because he's 23 and he's going to want to prove everybody wrong. But Benzema has been arguably the best player of the La Liga season, and he's just done it week in, week out. So I don't think he can have too many complaints for not playing.
No, don't think so. No, but yeah, I think I agree with you. I'd like to see him stick it out and not go off to Italy or something like that, because it's unfinished business, really. And obviously his behaviour hasn't been the best. I don't know about his general attitude at training and things like that. We're not there. I haven't heard anything bad about it. So, it's just, as you say, very difficult to sort of dethrone Benzema from that position. He's been. I've said this before. I think it's the best I've seen him play at Madrid this season, and that's a big debate, isn't it? Is who's been the best this season between Messi and Benzema? Because there's no way Barcelona would be where they are, albeit they're second. But there's no way they would be where they are if it wasn't for Messi chipping in. Either,
yeah, if Messi wasn't around, Barca would be struggling for a European spot. I think, he's got lower goals than he usually gets, but people have seen he's dropped into lower or deeper roles, and he's got 22 goals and 21 assists. So 21 assists, you know what I mean? It's staggering, really, for a centre forward. And yeah, he has that changed role. He's only scored one goal in the last 7 games, which is a penalty, which isn't like Messi at all. So he'll be pretty frustrated, and it's, you know, you can look at that and say, okay, if Messi had to score a few more goals, Barca would have won the league. But you can't really, because he's been there the whole season when nobody else has really stepped up. Suarez has had a pretty good season for a player that was out for so long with an injury. But apart from that, there haven't been too many standout performances for Barcelona. So yeah, Benzema, I suppose he's looked more consistent, and he's just been there time and time again. And the fact that there aren't really many other players for Madrid with big numbers. Now, in saying that, that goal that Mendy scored against Granada, the other day, that was the 21st Real Madrid player to score a league goal this season. So they've got goals coming from everywhere in the league, but no one's really helped Benzema with big numbers apart from Ramos. Ramos is in double figures. And then it's like Casemiro with 4 goals. Whereas Messi's got Griezmann and Suarez alongside him, but they haven't hit the heights. Griezmann in particular, because he hasn't fitted in as well as we expected him to. So yeah, if Griezmann was what we expected, and Suarez wasn't injury prone or getting on, you know, it could have been Barca's league. But Barca have won 8 of the last 11 league titles, so it's probably Madrid's turn. Yeah,
it's about time. I think it's about time that they won something. If they're going to do it, they might as well do it now when Barca don't look like they're in a particularly strong position. We're going to talk a bit more about Barcelona later. For now, let's just we'll talk about third and fourth. That's over now. We know who's in the Champions League: Sevilla and Atletico. It's guaranteed, 66 points each. The question now is who's going to finish third, and I think both of these teams will be happy with how things have panned out since the restart, particularly Atletico, given that the start of their season, before all this lockdown and everything, was a bit up and down. Sevilla, would it be fair to say they've been more consistent throughout the season than Atletico?
Yeah, I think you could say that, because Atletico were terrible early on, and since the restart they've been like a new team. But Sevilla have won games throughout the season, and they've had a similar style throughout the season. I think they've been more consistent. Lopetegui's done a great job in his first year, and Ocampos, for example, has started really well in his first season. He's got great numbers from a midfield position, with a kind of a left midfield position, and they've struggled up top really. So to get a Champions League spot with no real out and out striker is pretty impressive. It says a lot about their defence. I think a lot of credit has to go to Diego Carlos and Koundé. They've been exceptional at the back. And then obviously Jesus Navas, bit of leadership there. He's been brilliant. So defensively, you know, Lopetegui's got it spot on. And I think now that they're in the Champions League, Monchi's going to be licking his lips, because you know what he's like in the transfer window, and he's going to be looking at Luke de Jong thinking, we can't rely on you if we're going to go and play European football and be fighting on the domestic front as well. So I think that's going to be nicer for Monchi now. He'll be able to, he's always very good at attracting players and finding hidden gems, especially in France. But the fact that they're going to be able to guarantee Champions League football now is a big negotiating factor for him going into the summer window. And I'm not sure what they're like financially. I think they're pretty solid, but this will be a nice little boost of revenue, and definitely you can expect to see probably a few marquee signings as well. And maybe a couple of players that we don't know anything about, but Monchi has scouted them. He's got this crazy scouting system where he identifies, he's got like lists of A players, B players and C players, and he eventually gets them right down to his short list of A players, and then he goes from there and basically selects them. So he's got a whole process that's really successful. And yeah, you'd expect them to be even stronger next season.
Yeah, it's an absolute shark. It's unbelievable. It's interesting because we were talking a few weeks ago about Kubo and about the fact that he'd been linked with Real Sociedad, because obviously he won't be at Mallorca next season, and he's been their outstanding player by quite some distance this season at Mallorca, Kubo. I think that would be some scoop for Sevilla if they get him. Imagine that. And it's the kind of thing that Madrid would be happy to do, to allow this boy to have Champions League experience as well, because that's guaranteed now. Whereas Sociedad have just slipped away and now they're going to be Europa League sort of level. How good would that be for Sevilla if they could maybe get him in? I think he would do brilliantly in that team because he's a hard worker as well. So he would fit into the Lopetegui style. You know, he runs a lot as well. He's not like he's not a luxury player that sort of just has a few magic touches. He's a worker too. So I think he would be some scoop for them.
They've done business before as well. Like Sergio Reguilon is there on loan from Madrid, so the two clubs have worked together. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me too much. Imagine the speed you'd have down the right wing with Navas and Kubo. Like you'd have serious problems as a left back of the opposition team there. And then on the left wing you've got Ocampos. So yeah, like I think lots of teams are going to want Kubo. There's going to be serious demand. I heard Betis or another name mentioned as well, and they've got Pellegrini coming in. So I think Pellegrini is quite savvy as well, and he'll be looking to bring in the best players that he possibly can. But yeah, like the future's very bright for Kubo. It's still too early for him to go back to Real Madrid, so it'll be really interesting to see where he does end up for next season. He's probably one of the most exciting players in the league.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, he's been a complete revelation. I've been really surprised with just how well he's done. The game against Atletico, I watched that in full, and he was great. He was great, and he does remind me. You were the first person I've heard say this, that he reminds me of Messi.
Oh, tell nobody, Tommy.
No, well that's it. Loads of people are saying it now, but you were seriously the first person that I heard say it. So yeah, congratulations to you. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but
that's my award of the season.
Oh, it's a I told you so moment. But yeah, it was he'll be interesting to see where he goes. I mentioned Real Sociedad earlier. I think sort of goes without saying that they'll be the team with the most regrets in terms of this fight for European places. I think they'll be the team with the most regrets since the restart. They've really collapsed. Good result against Villarreal the other night, but so many regrets there.
Yeah, and they've got a horrible ending to the season. They've got Sevilla and Atletico, the two teams in the Champions League spots. So they're still on 54 points. Villarreal are in 5th on 57. And then Getafe and Sociedad in 6th and 7th, both 54. And then Athletic Club are in 51. So, you know, I still expect them to get a Europa League place, but they'll be kicking themselves because this was the season that they could have went and got a Champions League place. And when the football restarted in June, we were looking at Sociedad and they were higher up. They were in 4th place and we expected them to really stay there. But they just haven't been the same. Odegaard has tendinitis, so he's been in and out of the team. His form has dipped. And, you know, the 3-month break, for example, it changed Atletico for the good, but it definitely changed Sociedad for the worse. So it's a pity. But I think Europa League place for Sociedad, it's not the end of the world. I would have loved to have seen their young team in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And at the group stage, because they've got so many good players, Oyarzabal and Isaac and that sort of thing. So it might break them up slightly with players going back and players being sold. That's the only issue. Yeah,
and I think that's one of the big regrets is who can you attract as well after that. If it's, I suppose, being in a Europa League place, that will still attract players, but maybe just a different level of player compared to, for example, what Sevilla will now be able to do. Aguirre says he's proud of his players, and I think he should be proud of them. Just if you look at the whole, if you look at the season as a whole, you should be proud of them because they've been one of my favourite teams to watch this year. Just the way that they've played football, their attitude, it's been so positive and just been so good to see so many good young players just doing their thing and playing with real freedom. And they've been great to see, but it's so difficult to find positives since the restart for them because it's been a collapse. But they are going to go all out. He said that in the press the other day. So we're gonna put everything on the line to guarantee a European position, and I think they will advance them. They'll at least take a point or two for these games. Maybe a point from the game against Sevilla or something. I don't know, or it's possible. But yeah, difficult run, really difficult running. But yeah, Villarreal, we mentioned their positives before. Cazorla for me has been the highlight of the season. 35 years old. He's had 8 operations in his career. He's still doing it. And he scored 16 goals, which is 11 in the league, 4 in the Copa del Rey, and he's scored 1 goal for Spain in that game against Malta. So he's having an absolutely brilliant season, and he only needs 1 more to equal his record. I think it was this first season at Arsenal, he scored like 17 in total or something like that, 2012-2013 season. So I mean,
But it
how
looks like
good?
he's off at the end of the season.
Yeah, yeah.
Al Sadd with Xavi.
You'll be sad. Fucking terrible.
I'll definitely be sad leaving, seeing Santi go. There was a great video going around yesterday of him and Nacho Monreal
Yeah,
in the tunnel before the game with Real Sociedad and Villarreal, and obviously the two boys would have played together at Arsenal. So there was a lot of hugging going on before the game. Everybody loves Cazorla, like he's just one of those lovable guys and such a good player. But yeah, he's 35 and he probably thinks, okay, I've got maybe 1, maximum 2 years left. So I think Spanish media is saying that he's got basically a deal done already with Al Sadd to go. And he did say recently on El Ligero, the Spanish radio show, that he had his decision made, but he'd say that at the end of the season where he was going to end up. So I think he's going to be off, which was pretty sad.
yeah.
Going to Al Sadd.
Yeah, but there's a time limit on everything, I suppose. So
he's 35, and I think we've gotten a couple of seasons that nobody expected out of him.
Especially after some of those operations, just horror operations, like some of the stuff, like listen to interviews with the guy, some of the stuff that you like, just really horrible, like ligament stuff and like seeing the inside of his own leg and things like that,
And he's got like his arm tattoo on his ankle now to cover up some operation as well. So yeah, he's like a jigsaw, he said.
Yeah, like a jigsaw. Yeah, it's pretty accurate. Okay, let's hop right down the bottom end of the table, because this has been a bit of a roller coaster in the last few weeks. We've been saying it's finished, it's done. There's too big a gap between the bottom three and the other teams. You never know, though. Only 4 points of difference, 2 games. It's entirely possible that the bottom, well, the 18th and 19th, Leganés and Mallorca, they could get out, couldn't they? At the expense of Alaves and Celta. What do you make of the relegation fight?
Yeah, Celta fans must be just kicking themselves at this stage. It's just been a horror season for them, because they had that like nice run of form where they drew at Barca and they won 6-0 at home as well. So you were thinking, okay, here we go. They're going to be fine. They're going to be safe. But they've just been pretty poor in the last couple of games, and they've got Levante and Espanyol coming up. So I think with those fixtures, they'll be fine, because Levante have nothing to play for. Espanyol are gone. So I think Celta will get the points to stay up, because they're 4 ahead of the drop zone as it is with 2 games to go. So you'd expect that to happen. And even if they don't pick up any points, Leganés and Mallorca might lose their last 2 games and they won't even need to pick up points. But I'll expect them to get something from those 2. Alaves, however, they're in a bit more trouble because they play Betis and Barcelona. So
yeah,
I don't know where the points are going to come from for Alaves, really. So I think they'll be really looking over their shoulder and hoping that Leganés and Mallorca don't find some form right at the end of the season. But Leganés is pretty tricky. They've got Athletic Club and Real Madrid, and then Mallorca have Granada and Osasuna. So if anyone was to stay up, I'd say Mallorca. I think Leganés are gone.
Just because of that game against Madrid, no? Yeah, I mean, Athletic Club, they could, but...
Yeah, they could nick a draw. Like, they've got so much spirit, Leganés, but they just don't have the quality, and they lost Braithwaite to Barcelona. They've no goals, really. So, like, if you saw them going down, you'd be like, yeah, fair enough. Like, how were they ever going to stay up? Like, they had it all to play for, and it was... Their hands were tied, really. So I think Mallorca will be okay. I think Mallorca will, out of 2 of them currently in the bottom 3, I think Mallorca have a chance. But I think it's going to be as it stands, to be honest.
You think we'll finish the exact same way?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. What do you think?
I think I'd agree with you. I think Leganés, just by virtue of that game they've got to play against Madrid, they've got to take maximum points from it. Even if they beat Bilbao, that's not enough to get them past Alaves, and I don't see them taking anything off Madrid.
And even if those sides get maximum points from the last 2, which is highly unlikely, it's still difficult for them to stay up, because the other 2 sides are 4 points ahead.
Yeah,
games to play. So
yeah, and you need them to lose the games, and also Celta against Espanyol. You think if they can't win that, they deserve to go down. Put it that way. But yeah, the thing is, I've been looking at the relegation, like the parachute payments that you get if you go down, and it's quite interesting because, in England you get like we may call it like a linear payment. It's a fixed payment. The teams that went down last season, for example, Cardiff, Fulham, and Huddersfield, they got £42.6 million last season, and it's just the same for every team. In Spain, it doesn't work like that. The system of parachute payments you get is based on how much the club generates. Each team pays into a sort of piggy bank. It's like a kind of pot. And the clubs that have spent the longest in the league or that contribute most towards the piggy bank get the most if they go down. So the fact that you've already got Espanyol down, who have been in 26, 27 years, that means that they get 30 million of a 74 million euro pot. And the thing is, if Celta were to go down, big team, generates lots of money, they would probably get a similar amount. They'd probably get about 30 million, which means that whoever the third team is would get absolutely shafted. So it's like, from Leganés, you would probably think it's going to be them. They'll be praying that it stays the way it is. I think, that'll be a pessimist would be that, because if Celta drop down into that, it means that they get way less money. Espanyol are okay money-wise, but obviously they won't be happy to go down. But just by the fact that they are so big, they get 30 million. But it's already smashed records. Malaga, until Espanyol went down, Malaga had the record. They got 20.1 million when they went down in 2018-19. That was the most a team had ever received for going down. But Espanyol have absolutely smashed it just by virtue of how long they've been in there and what a big club they are. That's why it's so sad that Espanyol have gone down, because they do give the league so much in terms of money and in terms just as a club. They're just a great club. So, but it'll be slightly easier to accept if they get this money. But just quite interesting to see how that all works.
Yeah, it's pretty curious. All right, Espanyol are the fifth club in Spain for time spent in the top flight. That's how big they are. So they're going to be missed. But with all the money they have behind them with the Chinese owners, and if they can keep players on decent contracts who are really top flight players, they might get back up. But that Segunda division is just insane at the moment. It's so hard to get out of that league, and there's 2 games to go there as well. And every team in the league has either a chance of getting promoted or a chance of getting relegated. Yeah. So it's insane. There's so much to play for in that league. So Espanyol will be going down there thinking, here we go again. And then you don't want to go down to Segunda B. They call that the well, because it's so easy to get into, but it's so hard to get out of. El Pozo. So it's a slippery slope there. If you do get relegated, you don't want to slip down any further. Yeah. And we've seen big clubs do it, like Oviedo and Jornada as well. So it's a tricky one. You want to stay in Primera for as long as possible. Yeah. Ideally. Yeah. That's the goal.
That's it. Yeah. Accumulate as much money as you can. Yeah, well, that's another thing about if you drop down from Segunda to Segunda B, you only get 1.3 million. That is a linear payment similar to the one in England, but 1.3 million, it's nothing at all. So it doesn't help you in terms of bouncing straight back to Segunda. I think that's part of the reason it's so difficult, because you're basically hamstrung in terms of who you can bring in, and also just attracting players to play in Segunda B. It's not the most attractive league. And you end up relying a bit more on youth players and stuff like that. So, and
it's semi-professional as well for the most part.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's such a big change.
Standards are dropping massively. Players just aren't attracted to those clubs.
No, definitely not. You mentioned the Chinese owners of Espanyol there. There's been a lot of talk in the press about the owners of Valencia, because Valencia look like they're basically going to gut their team of sort of stars, of big money stars, guys that are on high wages, and focus more on youth. And the fans, usually focusing on youth is a good thing for fans, but it seems to be such a drastic change that a lot of the Valencia fans are not happy about this. What do you know about this situation?
Yeah, the news seems surprising, but it's not really, because the fans at Mestalla have been aggravated for quite a while now. It's just been constant managerial changes, taking in players that they don't like. They don't agree with the current board, and they're definitely not a fan of Peter Lim, the owner. So when you go to Mestalla, it's already a demanding atmosphere. They're really demanding fans. Might be a bit like Newcastle, huge club, and they've definitely had more success than Newcastle. But it's a big club in Spain, and they see themselves as almost up there with Barca and Madrid. You know what I mean? So they're big, and they feel like they deserve more. So they're crying out the whole time. And if you look around the stands during games, it's always Peter Lim, leave us alone, basically. So they've had 15 managers in 15 years, and since Lim took over 5.5 years ago, the club have signed more than 50 players. and they've hired 7 different head coaches. So they've got this president, Anil Murthy, and he's basically come in and he's talking about this new structure, changing their model where they're going to go to youth, and they want to be financially self-sustainable, but their budget is obviously way less than Madrid or Barcelona, maybe 5 times less. So they can't compete with Premier League clubs for like big signings. So they're talking about going local, producing local talent, like the likes of Ferran Torres, Carlos Soler, Gaia. They're able to bring brilliant players through, but they're maybe working on a budget of something similar to like Leicester or West Ham. So they see themselves as not being able to compete for big signings, but they're after signing 50 players. And if you look at their current squad, there haven't been many signings that have been brilliant signings. So they're trying to change their recruitment policy and basically just change the whole structure of the club there. So, but there's a lot of demand for their young players. So that's their financial model going forward. The likes of Ferran Torres could be sold this summer, lots of big clubs interested, and Soler possibly down the line as well. But Valencia fans won't be happy with that because, you're bringing youths through, but then you're selling your youth on, you're making profit, and then you're starting again. So are you going to go anywhere? Are Valencia going to be the force that they once were, competing for European football, or are they just going to become like a feeder club and sit in the top 10 every year? So it's a hard one to know, but like on the field and off the field issues there have been a problem for several years now. Albert Celades was sacked there recently enough, and caretaker manager Voro came in to save them once again, which he's done 6 times in the last decade. So he just constantly comes in. Marcelino was there, and he had a really successful stint at the club. He brought them into the Champions League, and that was one of the main reasons the fans were so angry, because they got rid of Marcelino. He couldn't agree with the board over several things, and they sacked him. So Peter Lim has no issues running this as a business, and he's like, okay, you're the manager, you're in the firing line, we don't care, we'll move you on. Ernesto Valverde has been linked with it. Now, whether he wants to go back in for more turmoil with board, he's had his problems with Barcelona's board. I don't know if he's going to be ready to step back in and do something similar. So it's a bit of a mess. They're talking about Parejo going, which is the club captain. I think that's pretty surprising because he had a brilliant start to the season and he just hasn't been great in recent months. And then some of the older players like Coquelin, Kondogbia, they're going as well. So I think let's clean it up and bring youths through and start again is basically what they're looking to do. And then the likes of Silicin, who they brought in for Barcelona for big money, he accounts for 7% of the club's wage bill. So the likes of him, you're gone. You know what I mean? Because especially now with COVID, clubs have lost so much money, and they're going to want to be stripping that wage bill as well and starting again. So interesting times ahead. It's going to be a big summer. Possibly Ferran Torres going to England, or Borussia Dortmund also interested. So we will see.
Yeah, it's interesting I think it's a really good comparison to draw between Valencia and West Ham. Valencia, I think, as you say, more successful, but there's the same kind of club culture. I think West Ham are happy to have young players coming through, but the problem that they had for years is that these guys would come through and then disappear. I mean, just that famous team with Ferdinand, Cole, Lampard, all these guys coming through and then just leaving. You don't want to see that happening at your club if you're not bringing anybody in. Valencia are bigger and should be able to attract bigger players than West Ham did during that period. But there's probably a fear that the standards could really drop there if they rely too much on youth, and then also see like a kind of exodus of the top youth players. And that's what modern football is like, isn't it? So it's it's going to be an interesting one there over the next few years. And as we mentioned before, Barcelona, we'll go on to talk about them. Where do they go from here? Because it's been one hell of a season for them in terms of what's going on behind the scenes there. The Pjanic transfer is just the latest in a big saga of things that the fans are not happy with. Where do you see Barcelona going from here into next season?
Yeah, it's all up in the air, really. One thing we know is that they're close to signing Lautaro Martinez somehow. I don't know, because financially they're in trouble. Junior Firpo has decided according to reports in Spain, that he's going to be part of the deal. He's going to go to Inter, and he'll make up 41 million of the 111 million that Lautaro is worth, and Barcelona are going to get 70 million cash to pay for him. So if they bring him in, he's seen as the replacement for Suarez going forward. They're going to be guaranteed goals, and Messi's still going to be there. So yeah, on the pitch, you can see goals. De Jong's going to have a better season. Their backline's a little bit old. They're going to try and get rid of Umtiti maybe. Pique's still there. He's getting on as well. Busquets is getting on. So they have a lot of senior players, and it's probably time for that transition to start, and that might happen next season. But we don't know who the coach is going to be. Bartomeu has said Setien will stay, but you never know with Barcelona. So again, stability. Like, you're looking at Valencia talking about a clean slate. Barcelona's just been such a mess from board level right down to the pitch. So we don't know if that's going to be cleaned up this season over the summer, or I think it's going to take a lot longer than a summer. They're going to need a couple of years, to go again. On the pitch, normally you see a cycle or a transition take place every 4 years. You've got a team come in, and then over 3 or 4 years, they gradually move on, and you blood young players coming through. So yeah, that's going to happen. But off the pitch, we don't know, because Bartomeu's mandate is up in 2021. It's going to be a new president coming in. That might mean a new manager, possibly Xavi. So yeah, off the field, there's going to be lots of movement. On the field, you're still going to have Messi and possibly Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah. The phrase that you hear more and more often now is this pan para hoy, hambre para mañana, like bread for today, hunger for tomorrow. They're sort of offering a lot of short-term solutions, it seems, to long-term structural problems. The biggest one on the park has to be this aging squad, because what's left of the great squad is they are getting on, aren't they? I think Busquets turns 32 tomorrow. I think it's the 16th. It's his birthday, just from memory.
He's only 32, yeah?
Yeah, 32 tomorrow. So he's not super old, but he's probably past the apex of his career. He's probably past his peak. He's starting to show signs. He'll always be celebrated as one of the greats, but it's just there have been a couple of games this season where he's not really quite been at the level, and regardless, even if he was playing well, he can't go on forever. So I don't think people would argue with the need to bring somebody in that regard, but the Pjanic deal is getting a lot of criticism because you're replacing a guy who's 32 with a guy that's 2 years his junior. And I think they're struggling to see the logic in that, especially when you've got a player like Artur, who's 23, going in the other direction. So it's like, it doesn't really... And Barca fans are just questioning the logic of what the board's been doing, of how transfers are being run, and it's the lack of confidence in the board. So maybe the new president, whoever it is that comes in, that could be that will define the next few years for Barca. Okay, well, we'll be back here on what day? We'll be back some point later on in the week to do a streaming on Instagram. You can find us at Talk Football Pod on Instagram, and by next week we'll have a winner, whoever it may be. We'll have a bit more information about what's going to happen. So, yeah. Well, looking forward to see you next week. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy your weekend. Adios.
Hasta luego.